Welcome to Smash Avo Property. Today I'm speaking with Fraol Reffu. That's right, it's round 2 with Mr Reffu. And we've got him on again today for a good reason. Fraol with PRD has released a new Housing Affordability Survey report conducted on Millennial tertiary students in Brisbane and other Queensland universities. Fraol walks us through the report, going over some of the key findings and breaking down what they actually mean, followed by delving deeper into the preferences, background, aspirations and barriers, and wrapping up with any limitations that he found.
Mostly of the participants preferred the distance from the Brisbane CBD 6 to 10 kilometres. So that's pretty much the inner ring of the metropolitan Brisbane, which, for millennials, that is quite interesting.
As always, seek your own professional financial, legal and property investing advice for your current situation. Everything we talk about is just our opinion and general in nature and should never be considered as personal advice. So without any further ado, let's get house hunting with Fraol. Fraol Reffu, welcome back to Smash Avo Property.
Hey Jordan, thanks for having me.
I'm excited to get you back on, mate. You're number 2 guest, episode number 2. So it's been a little while. I think this should be episode 21. So it's good to have you back, mate. How you been?
Yeah, good, man. Just staying isolated at home, staying away from this coronavirus. Yourself?
Yeah, it's pretty full on at the moment. There's lots of talks, lots of things happening. Things are changing every day, so it's pretty full on out there. You, I've heard you got some Instagram posts going on of daily updates of isolation. How's that going for you?
Yeah, it's going well, man. I'm just doing a daily update of I'm up to day 10 of isolation. Being a bit of trying to be funny on Instagram and also, a bit of content out there to keep myself preoccupied.
Yeah, you got to keep busy somehow in this
exactly.
crazy world. It's pretty full on. But anyway, on to the main reason for today. So you have or are about to release a research paper with PRD. It's actually part of your university thesis, so they're in combination together. But the main title of the thesis is Affordability Impact on Housing Aspirations 2020, and really it was conducted on, millennials around 18 to 34. And I think, this podcast is definitely the best place to sort of have a little bit of a discussion about it and the reasoning behind it and your findings and stuff. But
yeah, that's right.
I mean, to give us a little bit of background about it, why don't you go about how this study came about and how it was conducted?
Yeah, so just like you said, it is my university's thesis that was conducted last year at the end of December. It's part of a unit that we did called USB 344 Property Project. It was a group assignment, which was consisted of a survey-based method, which was then written to a report from the results. And then we also did a poster presentation, which we won. And I think it's a really crucial report where, I'm very fortunate where PRD has taken that assignment and was able to publish it.
Yeah, that's amazing. I can't believe. So did you get anything for winning, or was it just some ego boost?
We just got like a gift card, really.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, which is pretty nice.
Well, it's good that you, at least you guys won, and it shows the value of the report that you're giving. And I think
definitely.
I've had a quick read through, and there's so many good little data points in here, so I'm keen to delve into it to the listeners. But,
yeah, definitely.
I talked a little bit about the demographic before, but just to give a fine answer, who was the demographic that the study was conducted on?
So the demographic was conducted on millennials. So millennials are aged between 18 to 34 years old, according to ABS. And we preferably targeted tertiary students and their housing aspirations.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And how was this survey done? Was it done just through the uni that you were at, or did you pass it on to other uni students? How did you?
Yeah, so we used SurveyMonkey. So SurveyMonkey is an online-based survey. We had 116 responses. It's a tool that we use to distribute to tertiary students within Brisbane. So we try not to be biased as well. And we have distributed to different universities such as QT, University of Queensland, Griffith, USQ, and others. And,
that's pretty good.
Also, there were 30 questions. 5 of them were open-ended questions, 23 multiple choice, and 2 Likert scale questions. So at the end, SurveyMonkey has created an Excel file for us after we have conducted these surveys. And then with those questions answered, we create some sort of a graph where we're able to analyze it and put it into our report.
That's really cool. But I'm curious about the the 5 open-ended questions, did it graph them at all, or was it just like trying to find similarities in the responses?
Yeah, definitely gave you similarities and percentages as well. And then with those ones, we're able to analyze, what sort of trends and, what sort of trends and also similarities, just like you said, that will be relevant to that question.
Yeah, cool. And I guess that's I mean, that's crucial in terms of doing a report as well, because you want to sort of, you don't want to always just give the surveyee an automatic response. At least they can think about it a little themselves and type in an answer.
Exactly. We did have really good response from our participants as well. I had someone tell me, once they completed the survey, how it got them thinking about, more about them owning a home for the future. Do you know what I mean? So it was kind of like helping them out a little bit as well, and then getting them started ahead and opening up their brain towards their, future housing aspiration.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, it's going to be crucial for the listeners. It's going to be interesting to see, if they're in the same sort of headspace. And I'd love some feedback from the listeners as well. And any feedback that you send through to the podcast, I'll pass on to Fraol and PRD as well. But it's going to be interesting just to see, what their thought process is, how they think housing affordability is, and what they think the future impact's going to be. So let's delve into it. Can you break down sort of that executive summary for us and some of those key findings?
Yeah, sure. So 3 main questions, within this thesis, and they consisted of, their home ownership aspirations, their preferences, what sort of, what sort of housing they were looking into, and their barriers to home ownerships. So in the results, we found that 77% of tertiary students considered home ownership as being, extremely important, very important, which is quite interesting. As the Australian home ownership dream still continues within the millennial generation, which is pretty great to see.
Yeah, that's great. I think we get that from, our previous generations as well. Like,
that's what I think
instilled
as
on
well
us
from parents.
So at a young age, even our grandparents, it's always just been, get that big block of land and play backyard cricket and have that home ownership. So it's interesting to see that we're still there. We're 77%. That's really high. So
it is awesome. Pretty high, but then also I feel like these millennials need to be a bit realistic as well with these figures, because owning a home, it would be a bit challenging. But we did have a high percentage of 41% chose price range between 400 to 600K as their preference buying range.
Yeah,
and that's within Brisbane as well. And then the preferred dwelling type was like a separate house. 3-bed, 2-bath, and a single lounge room with enough for 2 cars. And mostly of the participants preferred the distance from the Brisbane CBD 6 to 10 kilometers. So that's pretty much inner, the inner ring of the metropolitan Brisbane, which for millennials that is quite interesting, and definitely that's what they would choose, because within the inner ring you got your amenities such as you got your pubs and restaurants and cafes around the inner ring, and that's where all the entertainment is.
Mm-hmm.
And largely of them also, 59% of the tertiary students have identified that price is like the greatest barrier to purchasing the property home.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's interesting just going over these sort of brief numbers, because, when you think of, when I've heard all these things about A-grade property and what to look for when you're investing in property, I mean, there are some pretty crucial things there, like, the 3 bedrooms, separate lounge, two car garages, being within that sort of inner ring of the CBD. There's some critical points there, and it really shows that if that's where the demand is, even for the younger generation trying to get in at a lower price range, those A-grade, asset selection pieces are really key.
Exactly. So you can definitely tell that, just like you said, the way they've been raised as well from their home, they could have had that knowledge from their parents or something, where they were told to invest in those type of properties. So it depends where they get the information from as well. And also, another barrier would be the interest rate increase. Even though right now our interest rates are really low, which encourage them to take this advantage of the cheap cash that's going around, cheap interest rates. But as the economy rebounds, I feel like interest rates will definitely increase. IBA will definitely push that cash rate up. But as the interest rates increase, like I said, you'll definitely impact them if they take a large debt towards their purchase of a home, and they won't be able to handle that to pay their repayments in the future.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, there's a lot of talk about it at the moment. Obviously, there's a lot going on with the coronavirus and interest rates having an emergency, drop again to 0.25. Now they're doing quantitative easing, and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on.
Yeah,
I think I
definitely.
read.
We've got a lot of stimulus out there. Do you know what I mean, for everyone, and
Yeah,
just with current market conditions, you know what I mean, it is a very scary time to be living in. But however, we've got a great government where they're just splashing out this cash and incentives towards us.
yeah, exactly. And I think I read that Philip Lowe said that they wouldn't increase interest rates until unemployment was back down to 4%. So
yeah, and then inflation would be 2 to 3% and all that stuff. Do you know what I mean? That's going to take a bit of a while, and that's why as a tertiary student or millennial, I mean, you should be taking advantage of these things. It will definitely have a just slight impact on property prices, while they'll be still somewhat affordable.
Yeah,
However,
yeah, and we might for the common listener. I think some things that we might be talking about might not make sense to you, but essentially what we're saying is money is cheap, and that they're not thinking about increasing the cost of borrowing anytime soon, realistically. And that's not to say that it's never going to go up. Obviously, it will go up in the future at some point, may continue to come down. There's even talk of going into negative interest rates, but the banks can't handle, their algorithms aren't factored into a negative cash rate. So, there's so many factors that are going to go into it. But yeah, essentially, money is cheap, and there's little indicators like that to watch out for. Just know that the cash rate and interest rates can go up, but at the moment it's not looking likely it's going to be anytime soon. But
that's right. It also depends on how the economy is performing, and sometimes millennials are unsure of property market conditions. Be getting the wrong advice from the wrong people, and also being deceived by the media on negative property market news stories such as bloodbaths and all that stuff, which definitely has an impact on consumer confidence, and it scares people as well. Do you know what I mean? So it's quite interesting to see that as well.
Yeah. I think you reshared that post the other day, but if you just see consumer confidence from the ANZ, it's just
my goodness,
it's fallen off a cliff.
It is, man. I reckon we go into the same figures back in the GFC, so it's quite interesting.
Yeah. So one interesting note that I'm just reading here off the report is they could be looking at buying units instead in their price range. So was that finding just to say, like, so they're happy they want to be within that sort of in a city radius, but within that price point, and if they can't get in that price point, they're happy to go for units rather than houses?
Yeah, exactly. So being realistic, 400 and 600K, it will be tough for them to buy a house, especially with 3 bedrooms and 2 bathroom, 2 garage. But if they're looking for a unit, I reckon that would be more preferable price range, as Brisbane units are very cheap, and they're also very oversupplied, which has a big constraint on prices.
Yeah, it's still interesting that that's something that they would consider. And I think, another point that you've got there is it's, due to the lack of property market knowledge. And so I'm sort of thinking to myself, is it because they don't really know what a good asset selection is, or are they just more comfortable in going into the units and then, buying units in Brisbane? Is that now a thing because, there's slowly increasing demand of it because of affordability? There's so many factors that go into it.
It's also interesting, even though they want to own a home now, maybe, that inspiration in 5 years could change. Do you know what I mean? While home ownership is currently desirable, with low interest rates, just like we spoke, these aspirations may not be permanent. It is, it could be a change to depending on a number of factors, such as current trend of millennials choosing to prioritize lifestyle, experiences over home ownership. That's why we kind of like targeting the title of the actual report. I want my smash diver with a 3-bed, 2 garage. A smash diver is quite expensive, but they just got to be realistic also in the future, as property prices have always gone up. That's why they should be taking opportunity to be investing, and also should be getting to the property market as soon as they can, as cash is cheap, just as we mentioned, and in the next 5 years property prices won't be the same as they are now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. So let's go into a little bit more detail about the report. I mean, there was sort of three main categories that were that stood out to me. It was preferences, background, and aspiration, and barriers. But let's go into those preferences. What were the findings there?
So with the preferences, just like I mentioned, they wanted a separate house, 3-bed, 2-bath, 2 garage. Which definitely, like I said, the Australian home ownership still lives. However, that would change in the next 5 years within the metropolitan city, especially with the price. And with the distance, 6 to 10 kilometers. Next 5 years, especially within the metropolitan areas such as Brisbane, Sydney, and Melbourne, we're getting massive population increases as a lot of people want to move in closer to the city, as that's where the jobs are and all that. And also a suggestion could be, millennials could be looking at a rent vesting. That could be an option for them, where where they rent where they live but purchase an investment property and under the portfolio within their budgets as well, which would give them a strong cash flow position. Which is and then at the end of the day, I think it's all about opportunity cost. They should be all doing their math with analyzing these things and what would be the best for them.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, as barriers as well, just like we identified, the HEX loans could be really high as well. That could be one barrier as well. With a low savings deposit, a lot of tertiary students have indicated properties between the price range 400 to 600K is ideal. However, it is a barrier, as the Brisbane median price is 670 in 2019. You know what I mean? So, like I said, in the future, house prices will definitely go up, and they could be leaning towards buying an apartment.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing about the HEX debt is I just refinanced, or going through the process of refinancing one of my houses now, and this was my last year to pay off my HEX. I think I had like $300 or something like that on there. And,
well done. Well done.
And I said that I didn't have any HEX when I was applying for the loan. And then obviously they wanted a screenshot or proof that I had no outstanding HEX debt, but I still had that $300. And even if it's $300, like they still want proof that it's completely paid off. So I actually had to pay the rest of it off, which was funny in itself. But, it really shows you how much of this impacts when you're trying to apply for loans and get finance and all that sort of stuff. Like all of this. Yeah,
definitely. And then, banks are definitely looking into these things. And then even if you have like Afterpay and all that other similar institutions, these things can, do accumulate. And also, if you have multiple accounts of these things or whatever outstanding debt that you have, banks will be looking at these things. And you won't be realizing the penalty you can take with the scheduled repayments, and it all adds up. And I believe that it has a negative impact on your credit score, and banks will definitely mostly reject your application.
Yeah, it's as they say, property investing is a financial game, and so easy to get caught up in all these different types of institutions.
It's definitely a numbers game. It's definitely a numbers game. It's also a very emotional game. Whatever it definitely impacts property, especially if you're going to actually be emotionally invested into it as well. And then also it depends on your lifestyle as well. All that stuff.
Just keep those financial records clean, huh?
Exactly.
So, in all of the findings and, the significance of everything that came out of this report, I mean, what do you think are there any limitations to what came through?
I reckon so about reducing, government actually stepping in and, helping out with, just lowering these stamp duty costs, because they're pretty large. You know what I mean? Building incentives such as low interest rates for those who, build greener, environmental friendly homes, or, developers designing to build homes that appeal for preferences for, millennials and young families, all these incentives just to help them to get in to the housing market, which is pretty much going to help the younger generation. Also solutions such as looking at ownership structures, and buying with a partner or having your parents as a guarantor. Which will also, however, this will all these incentives and all that stuff will put a pressure on federal government come up with like future incentives such as because Australian property prices are pretty expensive. One of the most expensive in the world. And then, and another one would be, first home buyers getting into the market with a 5% deposit.
Yeah.
It's all about doing your, opportunity cost and risk evaluation and all that stuff. And, as the government will be, 15% guarantor towards your property value.
Mm-hmm.
They're just trying to do all these things to step in and, help out first home buyers to get into the property.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, they're all going to be limitations moving forward, especially. It's going to be actually interesting to see what comes out of this coronavirus. Obviously, there's lots of stimulation out there in the market at the moment. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this period impacts the housing market and what will come of it into the future.
Yeah, exactly. Government will definitely be coming up with a lot of stimulus cash splashing. So they'll be working a lot. Scott Morrison is doing a great job out there. And, people need to be focused on, stimulus, on what's happening out there, and, taking advantage and not to be scared. Everyone is surrounded by fear. And fear is also one very negative impact on your housing aspirations.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, well, that's there's plenty of findings. I mean, I'm just looking through the report now, and the way the numbers are broken down up into percentages. Obviously, it's a lot cleaner to than just listening about it on the actual on a podcast. You can actually see, the answers there with the numbers across the top, and broken down in response percentages. So, so for people who are wanting to hunt down this report, where would they be able to find it?
They'll be able to find it at our PRD website, so prd.com.au/research. So they'll be able to find it in there, and as the report is being released, it could also be published by realestate.com.au or any other journal articles out there.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a phenomenal read. I'd highly recommend anyone go and check it out. I think awesome. You've done some great work there, mate, and considering that you won the award for it shows the importance of it. So well done.
Thanks a lot, Jordan.
And what about yourself? How's your investing journey? Are there any plans? What are you doing in the in this space at the moment? Are you looking? Are you refinancing? Are you just sitting and waiting to see what happens?
Literally sitting and waiting at home, actually. Doing a lot of research, do you know what I mean? Taking advantage of what's happening out there, and a lot of stimulus is coming out there. And I think start of the year we thought it was going to be a hot property market. But once it's coronavirus hit in, you know what I mean, that's definitely going to impact property. And now that auctions and open homes are banned and all that stuff, will definitely put some constraints out there, and buyers will be, consumer confidence is going to fall. Astute investors should be out there hunting these properties, because there'll be a lot of diseased properties out there. Do you know what I mean? But for me, I'm just pretty much just listening to what's happening, just paying attention, doing a lot of research, because as a research analyst, I'm seeing a lot of these things. And also probably just leaning towards maybe shares. Do you know what I mean? Like getting a bit of the diversification as well, just doing my research on that as well. Don't have too much knowledge on that, but it would be good to get into. I have a lot of friends who who are investment analysts as well. I talk to them a lot, and they've been advising me on companies to buy, ETFs and all that stuff.
Yeah, wow. Well, sounds like you got some good connections there, and I think I've been tossing around the same thing with shares too, because obviously they've dropping off a cliff lately, and I think everyone's kind of just sitting on the fence, as you say, sitting and waiting to see when it starts to rise again.
Exactly. It's actually pretty funny, and everyone's trying to find the bottom as well. You know what I mean? Even though shares have gone really low, everyone's trying to wait and see what's happening. They think shares are going to fall even further until we get this vaccine or whatever. So it all depends on your risk appetite as well, what you want to do and what your preferences are, and also what your goals are with investing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you're lucky you got those friends that can give you some advice there. I don't really know anything about shares, so
I'm more of a property person, mate. I feel like property is the safest asset out there, but I wouldn't mind having a bit of a risk appetite out there.
Yeah, I know. And diversification's good too out there, but I think I'll stick to property. I might just see what happens to the property market, and if a good opportunity comes up, I might take it. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah. What about yourself, Jordan?
Yeah, well, as I said, I think just before I'm refinancing my houses now, and then just pooling my equity and seeing how much of a deposit I can come up with, and then
awesome.
try and get a pre-approval and see what happens in the market. I'll sit on the pre-approval
Looks
for a
like
little
you're
while.
going to have to doing a lot of virtual inspections.
yeah, exactly. I'm not. I don't know. I'm not one to try and pick the bottom of the market. So I think if we do see a bit of a dip, and then the markets do open up, and inspections and auctions are sort of heating up a little bit, I might try and get in at some point. But yeah, I think depending on how much they fall or anything like that, might be a good time for us to get our family home. So
exactly. It all depends on what your goals are as well. Do you know what I mean? People always try to time the market, find the bottom, and all that stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, as long as you find the ideal home for yourself, even if it's a family home or investment property, you got the knowledge as well to find one.
Yeah, exactly. And that's that whole piece of, me not knowing anything about shares, but knowing heaps about property. So I may as well stick to my guns there.
Exactly. Stick to what you know, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And everything over at PRD is going well. Anything new happening over there? You guys doing well and surviving?
Yeah, we're doing well. Everyone's working from home now. We've been trying to release, information to our franchises about, the stimulus that's been happening to our small businesses out there, from each state wherever our offices are. Keeping an update with how the coronavirus is going and how it's impacting property, or how it's going to positively impact the property and that stuff. So a lot of more reports will be coming out as well. We also had a bushfire report that my coworker Josh Mangelson released, which was a pretty good report.
Yeah, I read that one. It was really good, actually. And I've been following you guys and keeping up to date with everything that's coming through. So keep up the good work there, mate. And send that on to the rest of the business, saying they're doing some good jobs. But
awesome.
Mate,
thanks,
I just wanted to say a massive thanks for coming on again today and going through your report. I think there's some fantastic insights there. And as I said before, it'd be interesting if the listeners are sort of in the same headspace, and I'd love some feedback. If you're in the same mindset, if you want to do some sort of same survey or something like that, let us know, and maybe we can tee something up with Fraol.
Awesome. Thank you, Jordan. Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate Fraol and PRD for letting us delve into their findings. There's a ton of insights here about what the younger generation are after and how housing affordability restraints are impacting on their asset selections. I'm always looking for more guests to come onto the show. If you're under 30 and have one or more investment properties, whether it's good, bad or ugly, I would love to talk to you about it. The main focus is to help other soon-to-be young investors with tips and tricks along the journey. Learn from the mistakes that we have made and ignite the fire to set themselves up financially for the rest of their lives. If you're interested in sharing your story, you can go to jordandeyong.com/podcasts, where there's a podcast inquiry button at the top that will guide you through the next steps. Also, if you want to see what else I'm up to, you can head over to my YouTube channel to see the latest. Just type Jordan De Jong into YouTube and I should pop up somewhere. If you're keen for more content like this, make sure you subscribe and please leave us a review with any feedback for future podcasts. And until next time, happy house hunting.